Well, this goes back to the idea of basis of unity, and like developing a basis of unity, and like because basically if you think about Occupy Peterborough as an affinity group, or like and a movement, like I would identify the Occupy movement, the global Occupy movement as an anti-capitalist movement. Then like in terms of central message, it should be about what the change we want to see, and not how to go about that change, because that's up to individuals to like make happen. And like I don't know, that's just a suggestion. But I think like developing a basis of unity is like really important, because like really I think a lot of people are going to decide whether they want to participate under the Occupy Peterborough banner based on the basis of unity, which hasn't become available yet, and like part of the reason why this is my first GA. And that's the sort of thing I think that needs to be hashed out, because if it's like the Occupy movement should be about actions and like attempting to achieve goals. So identifying those goals, that's important, I think, and that comes with basis of unity.
Okay, I'm going to do a point of process shout out to Rochelle, because I'm relatively inexperienced at facilitating. How to go forward, because this is an interesting.
I think that's a very difficult question to answer. I think that there are some big questions that have come up. At this point, we could try to whittle down to exactly what proposals we need to come to a temperature check on, would be one modality. The other would be that we actually just open it up for a quick go-around so that everybody just kind of guts what they think about all this. And then we try to decide what it is that we're looking at. But those would be the two.
It almost seems, oh sorry, can I just clarify something? Because it almost seems like if this GA is just, if the document came up and the GA said, we do not ratify it, we block it, okay, that's fine, this document doesn't exist. But then that doesn't beholden the Direct Action Committee to anything else. It doesn't mean that the Direct Action Committee doesn't have these values in their conscience, in their group, as they go forward. So it's almost as if by ratifying this document, we're holding you to it, and all future people and all committees to it. But if we just block this document, you still have those values, and we trust you to hold to your conscience and what you believe is acceptable, but we're also not passing judgment on other people.
I don't even think we would have to necessarily block the document. Somebody could make a proposal that we in fact decide that we are not going to deal with this document, that it is a document for the Direct Action Committee to hopefully be guided by the discussion that we've just had.
Would you like to withdraw your proposal for the document?
Yeah, it's just, this is going to waste so much time like this. Yeah.
Well, actually, this is interesting, because this wasn't a waste of time at all. So I think, and this is actually perfect, because going forward, every committee and every group within the movement is allowed to, as autonomous individuals, decide what guidelines are going to guide them. And that is a very powerful thing that just happened here, because direct action now, direct action now, and any committee in the future, as autonomous individuals, can decide on what guidelines are going to guide their work. And that goes for this assembly. This is very indicative of the inverted cone, because at whatever circle level it is, they're autonomous individuals. And that's interesting. Want clarification?
But that I would add the caveat that as a general assembly, that the only time that we would intervene upon that being the case would be if new people wanted to get involved in a committee and that they were finding that it wasn't still fluid and open to discussion. Then and only then would I say that there needs to be either that, or we adopt the idea that as autonomous groups, committees, etc., people make their own decisions, but that in the spirit of open organizing, all groups remember that all things are fluid and up for consistent movement change, but can decide within themselves, like, does somebody have to come to more than one meeting to change the mandate, for instance? Like, I think that we can give autonomy and trust the brilliance of the committees, but that it needs to remain open to new folks and not be held to the old judgments of like, you weren't here at this GA, we made this decision, you know? That's my only fear in that.
Okay. So we have a few points, yeah.
Without being judgmental, I couldn't be a member of Occupy Peterborough that condones violence, but not being judgmental of people who can, but I just couldn't personally.
What if some of the guidelines were like percentages, like, you know, you said 80% of the members supported a living wage instead of minimum wage, or only half the members supported a certain principle, and just in general said, you know, they're not binding, but the majority tends to believe certain parameters.
I'm going to do a point. That's a point. I'm going to do a point of process because we do have a bunch of proposals to come up with, and which I'd love to just work through in the next 50 minutes. This was a really interesting discussion. I feel like we need more opportunities to discuss, which is why I'm going to propose that we meet maybe half an hour before the GA for just discussions between people next week. But there are a bunch of proposals that groups have, and I'd like to kind of cap this discussion for now and move on those, and then maybe people can discuss after the GA. Does that seem like a fair point of process? Do people agree, disagree? Okay. Okay, so let's get down to it. Are there any announcements that people need to make regarding updates or reports?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Occupy related.
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
It's more of like a report.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can do it. Yeah. Trent Radio is having a community radio workshop session. If you are interested in this at all, here's the sheet that will tell you about it.
Okay. As a point of process for announcements, so this would be updates or reports from committees, not necessarily proposals, and then non-Occupy related stuff would be kind of at the end as news, and then we can share that in the newsletter email as well. Any other announcements or reports?
We're still looking for facilitators so that we can keep rotating. It's a fairly small body, and it'd be great if people wanted to try it out. The other thing I would just say for process, maybe we can continuously talk about the first part as updates and the end part as announcements, just so people don't get confused.
Michelle, I'd like to facilitate, but I'd have a co-facilitator with me to help me with it while I do it. Is that okay?
That's definitely something we can figure out.
Yeah. Because I don't think I could do it on my own, but if I had someone help me,
So
I'd do it.
in terms of updates,
You'll help me with it?
This-
Okay, sure, no problem.
okay. This is a good point though, because all the committees need people, and communications is actually working on another platform that might be able to facilitate work between GAs and discussions between GAs. So please, there's Google Groups, there's Facebook, and there's something else we're working on that it's not quite ready. But that's where the discussions need to happen, that's where the work needs to happen. So we can share that information between GAs.
So can I facilitate with Ian next week?
John, we will talk in between, because there's a facilitators group, and we can discuss next week.
Okay, sure.
We need to work that out on a week-to-week basis. Also update, Reframe went very well. We filled out the mailing list. There was also 2 petitions that got filled, which I can post online and people can agree or disagree on whether to, I'm going to send them in as an individual, and you can check them out online. We also filled out the mailing list for up to 120 people on the email, and budget committee reports that we have $80 in the bank. Not in the bank, in a little box in my room. Okay, so if there's no more updates, I'd like to move into proposals. We'll start with the committee proposals that they've been working on, and then we'll add in individual proposals. Is there any committees that have proposals?
The proposal of the Direct Action Committee is that we support the Caring Society, the Indigenous Caring Society hearings that are going on in Ottawa from the 14th to the 16th. I think that's the date. No, from the 13th to the 15th. Specifically, there's going to be a rally in Ottawa on the 14th called Have a Heart. And the initiative, the hearings are around the increased needs of Aboriginal children, to support Aboriginal children. And with the Attawapiskat emerging, it seems to be a general sensing amongst many people that we need to show support for Aboriginal peoples. So there is a proposal that some people go to Ottawa, and that we also have a support rally here in Peterborough.
What date?
The 14th would be the date of the rally. Yes.
Would I be able to include in that the kind of the project Indigenous Insight? Because there was a few things.
Yes.
There was also, I was at the DA meeting, and there's a few things going on in February involving the Indigenous community of Peterborough. And there was also a big discussion on our name being Occupy or Occupied to represent colonialism within Canada and within its roots in the movement. And so not to disregard that debate, because there are some people with some very strong feelings for it, there was a proposal to create a working group for now, Indigenous Insight, to promote this 14th Indigenous Solidarity Rally and see if there's anything going on like that. And they would also reach out to the Indigenous agencies in the community. And there's also another talk by Thomas Clayton Mueller with the Indigenous Environmental Network on the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
And they would also, and so this Indigenous working group would kind of take on these events. So we can do that in two parts, or would you want to just do it as propose a working group to work on these tasks?
As one action?
Yeah.
Split into two, the Ottawa and the local one?
Because we can discuss the details of all these events, or we could propose the working group that came up in the DA, and they would work on the events. Does that make sense?
Well, time is kind of moving on rather quickly, so maybe we should get some sense of how people feel about supporting this action in general.
Yeah.
Michelle's got something to say.
Just to clarify, maybe we can pull them apart. It seems to me that one proposal is the creation of sort of an Indigenous solidarity group related to this that would link to all these other things that are going on, including the talk. And then Joe's proposal is that some people go to Ottawa and that we might have a support rally. I think that those are actually two different proposals. And on the question of whether or not people go to Ottawa, this is where the autonomous stuff comes in, where it's like, it's one thing if we want to send a letter on behalf of Occupy saying we're in support of something. I don't think we need a mandate from a GA for people to decide to get into a car. If some people are going, then I would suggest that the more effective thing to do would be to assert, some of us are going, who would like to come, would we like to bring our banner, you know? Just to kind of weed those things apart so that people don't feel like they need a mandate to move things forward. So I would say that's actually three different little proposals.
Okay.
One for the Indigenous Solidarity Group, one for whether we're gonna have a rally here, and one for whether there's sort of collective support to mobilize to go to Ottawa.
Occasion to, last couple of weeks ago, we talked about an Indigenous Insight working group. Would that be the same as an Indigenous Solidarity group?
That was, that was a proposal that we didn't get to. So I wanted to bring that into this context so promote a group that will work between GAs